Hey everybody, it's the Dude here, back at last to bring you another Game of Thrones video. This week I'm going to be reviewing the entire first half of Season 7, episodes 1 through 5. I didn't have quite enough time to do every single episode, one episode a week, but nevertheless I am super excited to be here back talking about Game of Thrones with you. Along with covering a couple of the things that I loved this season, I will also be pointing out a few things that I didn't like so much. On top of that, I'm going to be giving you my top 5 questions that are still unanswered and need to be answered before this season is over. So with that, let me give you a formal spoiler warning. There will be major spoilers for the first half of Season 7, along with some very minor spoilers for the A Song of Ice and Fire book series. So, if you're not caught up in the show or haven't read the books and don't want to have them spoiled, please stop watching now. In my last video, the Jaime Lannister death theory, which you should all check out, it's down in the description, there seemed to be a little bit of confusion whether or not I was talking about the show or the books. So anytime I'm talking about the show, there's going to be this little icon down on the screen, and anytime I'm talking about the book, you'll see this icon. With that, let's get to it. Season 7 of Game of Thrones has been one of the wildest so far. This has to do in part with how far past the books they've gone. At the end of Book 5, Jon just got stabbed, Stannis is outside Winterfell, Daenerys has just met her Dothraki horde after leaving Meereen on a dragon, Cersei's only just made her walk of shame. Starting last season with Season 6, just about everything they were doing was completely off book, leading a lot of us fans to wonder whether or not anything that's happening in Season 6, 7, and 8 of Game of Thrones will ever actually happen in George R.R. Martin's book series. So Season 7 is even further away from the books. Dany is in Westeros, for crying out loud. This is something that book fans thought might not actually ever happen, but we're here. One thing that I've absolutely loved this season is simply the gravity of the conversations that are being had. So often, in almost every scene, we're seeing characters that have been in the series the entire time, but that are just now meeting. Conversations between people that I thought would never actually take place, like Daenerys and Varys the Spider. This person who had worked for her father, who had worked for Robert, who had sent assassins to kill Dany, and Jorah Mormont to gain her trust. I thought the scene between them was fantastic. She did not back down at all, and neither did he. When it came down to answer for his crime, he told her that he serves the realm, the people, not some king. And her response was just so beautiful. It was that if she ever failed the people, that he would not try to put another leader in place behind her back, that he would come and talk to her face to face and tell her how she could do better. I was looking forward to this scene so much, especially after, in the season finale of Season 6, Daenerys and Varys were shown on a boat together, having never said a word to each other, and having a lot to talk about. And the list goes on with these conversations. You got Sam and Jorah, Jon and Dany, a major one, Jon and Theon, Davos and Tyrion, Tyrion being responsible for the death of Davos' son, and 4 sons in the book. I'm on the edge of my seat all the time because, including this whole season, there's only 15 episodes left of the whole series. Every moment is precious time. So every time they make good use of their seconds and have characters say things they should say, bring up topics that they have to talk about, it gets me really excited. But on the other end of the spectrum, sometimes this show, even now, wastes their time. There was this scene when Arya, oh, I love Arya by the way, when Arya gets to Winterfell, after hearing that Jon is alive and King of the North. And we spend, honestly, 5 minutes on her trying to get through the gate because just the 2 douchiest guards in the world won't let her in. The scene dragged on forever and didn't make any sense to me. One, it's winter. I mean, come on! Why are you turning anyone away? No one should even be able to survive out in the cold. And these 2 guards survived the Battle of the Bastards, where thousands of people died in a pile. You don't think that they would have learned a little bit of humanity and let this little girl in? Who cares if she's not who she says she is? I can't believe we wasted that much time. There's actually been a surprising amount of soldiers and guards from differing families and factions. Arya again met Ed Sheeran with a bunch of Lannister soldiers. That scene I actually liked. Arya has just killed all of the Freys, all of these foot soldiers that did participate in the Red Wedding but did it because of orders. Now she's looking at other soldiers, Lannister soldiers, who were just taking orders, who have families and girlfriends, hopes and dreams. It put the idea in our her head and in Arya's head that maybe everybody is in evil. Maybe she needs to not kill entire families. Maybe she needs to just focus on the truly evil people. There was also about a 10-minute sex scene between Grey Worm and Missandei, two characters that nobody really cares about, unless of course Missandei is going to betray Daenerys, in which I really want to see more of her. But there's no hint in that 10 minutes. It's all just about these two characters. And it was just so long, slightly uncomfortable. All the audience could think about is, well, doesn't he not have a penis? I mean, it's cool, you can do whatever you want, but I mean, come on, 10 minutes. I don't know what I'm sitting here for. And worse than that, it was probably only going to lead to Grey Worm's death, so I feel like that was wasted. But that's okay. I like to focus on the things that I loved. The time that I didn't feel was wasted. I've been pretty impressed by the number of battles that have taken place so far this season. Big Greyjoy versus Greyjoy ship battle was a little chaotically edited, but still spectacular. I was a little surprised that the Sand Snakes died so unceremoniously. But what made up for that was the fantastic implied death of Ellaria and her daughter. Cersei in that scene was terrifying. I absolutely loved this scene. Cersei thinking about how she's gonna kill her and get revenge allowed the audience to think about it. Is she just gonna have the Mountain do it? But the kiss, I thought, was just perfect. And Ellaria, I gotta give her credit, she did an amazing acting job. In episode 4, we got the crazy Lannister army versus the Dothraki, and to top it all off, we got Dany on her dragon. This was bonkers. I totally thought Bronn was gonna die, but obviously they needed him to come in and save Jaime at the last moment. That I thought was a little ridiculous, but on the rewatch I thought that the CG looked a little better and that the moment felt cleaner. I don't really like how Jaime's heavy armor was kind of brushed off and he was just alive and well at the surface of the water at the beginning of episode 5, but obviously Bronn has some kind of role to play, him now having saved Jaime's life a number of times. Another element of this season that has shown that they are going full throttle to the endgame of Game of Thrones is the fact that in only 5 episodes so many entire families have been eradicated. We opened with the Freys. Euron and Cersei took care of the Dornish, and then the Tyrells, finally, with an amazing scene with Olenna. One note on that, I do wish that Jaime had had the forethought, which might be impossible, but I wish that he had actually given Olenna the poison that had killed Joffrey, even though I doubt they would have had the Olenna actress act out all that convulsing. But I hoped. And then Dany has basically destroyed the Lannister army and the Tarly line. I think this is significant because back when Aegon the Conqueror first took over Westeros, there were many houses that existed at that time that were completely eradicated then. Many of the houses we know today were the ones that agreed to serve the Dragon Lord when so many other houses didn't. The Lannisters took over after the Casterlys were killed. The Tyrells took over after the Gardeners were killed by the dragons. My point here is that it's going to be very interesting to see what kind of houses form after the war is won. Maybe Davos will form House Seaworth. Maybe Bronn makes House Blackwater. It just makes me think of all these fun options for the future and the endgame of the show. Lastly, before moving on to my top 5 questions that still need answering, I should talk about Jon and Dany. At this point, it feels a little obvious that we are building to some kind of romantic relationship, and we can all see it. They're both beautiful and have the blood of the dragon. I think it's been done pretty slowly, and the fact that Jon just left for the Wall without any kind of kiss or hint that he has an attraction to Daenerys, I think that was the smartest move possible. I was really worried that they were going to push that relationship way too soon, but I'm glad they're dragging it out. I think some time away from each other, giving Jon time to prove himself, will lead to an actual believable romantic relationship between the two. Now, the caveat there is that if Jon is the son of Rhaegar, that means he's Dany's nephew. But I don't think that will stop them from at least trying. They might not inevitably get married, but if a true relationship forms, their actually being related might not even be enough to stop that. Alright, on to the big questions that still need answers. Number 1, what's the point of Sam? For a long time, Samwell Tarly was simply Jon Snow's buddy, and for the longest time it was thought that he would just eventually become a maester. He left for the Citadel at the beginning of Season 5, and only just got there at the end of Season 6. They wasted 2 seasons giving us nothing worthwhile. They sent him back home where he stole his family's Valyrian steel sword. But of course that has had literally 0 mention this season, and it looks like it won't have any mention now that Sam's father and brother are dead. I did absolutely love the poop montage that Sam had at the beginning of this season. Similar to how Arya had to work in the House of Black and White, it's necessary to show this part of the Citadel. I also love the actor who plays the Archmaester. He plays extremely well with Sam, and is a great addition to the show. But apart from that, what we always thought Sam's purpose was to get to the Citadel and find out some juicy, helpful new information about how to defeat all the White Walkers north of the Wall. But so far, he's only found out that there's a bunch of dragonglass under Dragonstone, which is something that Stannis told everybody. So that's not original to Sam. That's not what he's been building to this whole time. In the last episode, he was reading over some books with Gilly, and she nonchalantly mentioned the annulment of the marriage between Rhaegar and Elia Martell, and then the secret marriage between Rhaegar, and then she putters off. This, of course, implies something major to the entire plot, that Rhaegar not only stopped being married from Elia Martell, but then secretly married Lyanna Stark. Part of the problem with people thinking that Jon Snow was the son of Rhaegar and Lyanna was that if the two weren't married, Jon Snow's still a bastard and can't be king. But if there was a secret marriage, that means he's not a bastard. He's actually the Song of Ice and Fire. Targaryen Stark. Oh my god. But Sam skips over that. Poo-poos it, doesn't even pay attention to Gilly. And even if he had, this is not going to be the big thing that Sam learns that he brings to the table. If there was a secret marriage between Rhaegar and Lyanna, it would have been in front of a white weirwood tree, for it to be taken seriously in the eyes of a Stark. So, because Bran Stark can now see through everything, most importantly all the weirwoods, he has definitely time travel witnessed this secret marriage and already knows about it. Meaning he knows way more information than Sam could ever about this. So, that's not what Sam's gonna bring to the table. Of course, his purpose could have been to remove Jorah's grayscale, but even in curing him, they never talked about Jon Snow. There was nothing Jorah learned about Jon that he could impart to Dany to make her trust him more. Sam also never really introduced himself, so Jorah, when he went back to Dany, was never able to say, oh, a maester in training named Sam saved me. At the time, he was in front of Jon, meaning that Jon could have heard about Sam and what he's doing. So Sam trying to influence the rest of the world through Jorah really kind of fizzled, so that's not what he's doing. And then after all of that, Sam is leaving the Citadel. He's abandoning it. They didn't mention whether or not he took the family sword. I assume he did. But he's taking Gilly and the baby and heading who knows where. Wherever it is, he's not in a position to find some lost scroll that teaches you how to save the world. I just don't know why we're spending all this time with traveling and poop montages, and I just don't get it. So before the end of the season, I need to know, what the hell is the point of Sam? Number 2, what is Arya's endgame? Is she gonna kill Cersei? Arya Stark is one of my all-time favorite characters from anything, and she's been on a hell of a journey this season alone. She decimated the Frey family, which was awesome. In the books, Arya is still training at the House of Black and White, where she's trying to become no one. So for the longest time since Book 5 has come out, people have been wondering whether Arya will ever actually become no one. Now, the show has shown us otherwise. She's not. She's still Arya Stark, and she's still being herself. But in the books, a lot of people think that Arya might lose her identity, become this assassin, and be sent to Westeros to kill somebody. A lot of people think that because of the throne's debt to the Iron Bank, that the Iron Bank, being right next door to the House of Black and White and Braavos, will hire a faceless assassin to kill Cersei to get all their money back. and everyone thought that that would be perfect for Arya to do, because she wants to kill Cersei anyway. This season in the show, when she was talking to Ed Sheeran and company, she blatantly said, "I'm gonna kill Cersei." After she learned about Jon and went to Winterfell, she saw Bran, who gave her the dagger that Littlefinger just gave to him. This is a dagger whose owner we don't really know. In season 1, Littlefinger led us to believe that it belonged to Tyrion, which led Catelyn to kidnap him. But, of course, Tyrion didn't try to kill Bran. Possibly it was Littlefinger all along, or, in order to cover it all up, maybe Cersei stole it from Tyrion. Meaning that Arya could be on track to kill Cersei with the dagger that she tried to kill Bran with. On the other side of the map, Cersei, who is a amazing, vengeful, evil bitch, is pregnant. She, as a child, was told by a woods witch how many children she would have and that all of them would die, and now she's pregnant with Jaime's baby, and she's starting to think about a truce. She's starting to think that maybe she can work with Daenerys and find some way to be peaceful. And that sounds amazing. To have Jon Snow and Cersei and Daenerys in the same room talking about not war, but White Walkers would be fantastic. And what I feel would be even better is if, at the last moment when peace might actually be reached, Arya pounces in, she was disguised as Bronn the whole time, and kills Cersei. Arya doesn't know what's going on. She hasn't been let in on all the political mumbo-jumbo, all these agreements. She hasn't seen Jon or Dany or Cersei in forever. And I think if presented with an opportunity, she might just act. Which I think would be super cool. It would be great if this season built to an agreement that fell apart at the last minute. What a cliffhanger it would be. Another theory about Arya that is mainly from the books is the fact that her death may be inevitable. That she might spend the rest of her journey trying to become no one, trying to become this assassin. In the books only, Arya has shown that she has the warg capabilities that both Jon and Bran have. She has the power to put her mind into the wolf that she lost in season 1, Nymeria. In book 4, we hear that this massive wolf is leading a pack of almost 1,000 wolves across the Riverlands. And while Arya is in the House of Black and White, she has dreams of being this wolf. When Jon first died in the books, people assumed that he would transfer his consciousness into his wolf's mind. This never ended up happening in the show, but I still think it'll happen in the books. And I think that in the end, Arya being bloodthirsty for revenge will get her killed. And that she would go into her wolf Nymeria and be surrounded by wolves. Be with her wolf pack. This pack that she was taken away from as a little girl. I always imagined that the epilogue of the final book, the end of the entire story, would be wolves running through the snowy night. They would be our Stark characters. The pack would be back together. I always thought it would be so beautiful. Bittersweet, but beautiful. But now, in season 7, Arya is on her way to Winterfell, and she sees a giant wolf in a wolf pack. And she thinks it's Nymeria. We all think it's Nymeria. But then she looks at it for a long time and it doesn't recognize her and it walks away and she says, "It's not you." Does that mean that in the books, this wolf pack, this giant dire wolf that's leading 1,000 wolves across the Riverlands, isn't Nymeria? That she's not meant to die and become her wolf, join the pack again? That she's never meant to be no one? This whole scene gave me a big mixed signal with everything I've ever thought about the end game for Arya. So that's the second big answer I'm looking for by the end of this season. I don't think she'll necessarily die at the end of this season, but I definitely think we'll have a better idea of the direction she's going. Right now, she seems to only be worrying about Sansa. There is a little worry in the back of my mind that Littlefinger will realize that Arya is a major threat to him getting Sansa like he's always wanted, and he might try to have Arya killed, which probably won't go very well for him. In this last episode, it seems that he's set up Arya to steal a note from his room. He's obviously trying to form a rift between the two sisters. If it works, I don't know. Could Arya be the downfall of Littlefinger? Maybe. Only time will tell. Okay, on to number 3. The Greyjoys. What the fuck is up with the Greyjoys? Last season, we got the King's Moot, the ancient ceremony that chooses the King of the Iron Islands. serpents. In the books, it's a magical, fantastic scene that takes place in the rib cage of a giant sea serpent. There's so many more candidates with a lot more intrigue and interwoven stories. A lot of people don't like the Greyjoy plot from book 4, but I love it. And in the show, I was thoroughly disappointed by how it was simplified to be Yara versus Euron. They cut out a character, Victarion Greyjoy, Euron and Balon's other brother, which tells most of us book fans that Victarion in the book is kind of going to lead to nothing. And I was fine with him being cut from the show. But then at the King's Moot, Euron admits to killing Balon and still becomes king. Theon's there, which he wasn't there in the books, and he backs Yara to lose with her, and they escape with all of the boats. And Euron says, "Build me more boats." It was just so ridiculous. That was the last of Euron we saw that whole season, and for the rest of the time, Theon and Yara are on their way to Daenerys. And within an episode, they've gained her favor and are on their way back. Theon is a character that we've been with since the series began. He was a pitiful, kind of nasty guy, but then we were with him through this torture at the hands of the Boltons, him losing his humanity. It was very, very powerful for all of us. And the reason we watched through all of it was to finally see him be his own man. We thought we saw that with him saving Sansa and killing Ramsay's girlfriend, What's-Her-Face, but he never gets to kill Ramsay. He never gets his direct revenge, and now he's in some other plot. This other plot with Daenerys, which doesn't feel like it's going to remotely happen in the books. I feel like we're losing Theon's character in the mess of characters we already have to focus on. Like I said earlier, I did really like the Greyjoy versus Greyjoy ship battle this season, but I was so upset with the ending. Though it does make sense. Euron has Yara with a knife to her throat, and he gives Theon the option to come get her, but he's looking around at the fire, people burning, people getting their gold teeth taken out, people getting looted, just blood and guts and violence. He has this panic attack. I thought he played it fantastic. The actor is one of the best on the show, but he jumps off. He loses the opportunity to finally get any ounce of revenge. And by that, I was very interested. I was back with Theon. I wanted to know, okay, so he has to kill Euron somehow. I don't know how. He's not very smart, and he's not a fighter, and he can't walk very well, and he's really scared of everything, and he has no confidence. Yara gets taken to Cersei by Euron, but Cersei gives her no attention, and then she's carted off when Euron leaves. Next time we see Euron, we don't really see Euron, we just see his armada attacking Grey Worm's armada outside Casterly Rock. And then, for the next 2 episodes, we get none of that. We don't know where Yara is. Was she put in a cell in King's Landing? Was she taken with Euron? Probably. Did Grey Worm die? We don't really have any idea. Theon just got back to Dragonstone for a kind of awkward conversation between him and Jon, and this is the last we saw of Theon. So, for number 3, by the end of this season, I need a firm answer on what the fuck is going to happen with the Greyjoys. Now that Jaime and Cersei are having a baby together, she's definitely not going to marry and let that guy fuck her. So, will his downfall be at the hands of Theon? I don't know. Number 4, is conflict avoidable? Like I said earlier, it's possible that Arya will at the last second swoop in and fuck up everything, but is peace possible? Could Daenerys, Jon, and Cersei reach an agreement to not fight, have peace, and focus on the White Walkers? In the caves below Dragonstone, we saw that the First Men and the Children of the Forest had come there, either to make a deal or after having made a deal, in order to take down the White Walkers. Since the beginning of the book series, it's clear that George R. R. Martin is anti-war, so it would make sense that the end of the whole story does not end in a total war. We already got the big dragon and Dothraki fight, so it is possible that King's Landing will never fall to fire, that the groups will come together to fight a greater enemy. It sounds like the end of this season could cliffhanger in such a way where that is all that it's building to. I think the most interesting aspect of this is the fact that Cersei's pregnant. She feels like she's beaten the prophecy against her and that maybe none of that matters. Maybe that what she thought about Tyrion, that he was eventually going to strangle her and kill her, that maybe that's all wrong. If she can have a child now, maybe she can beat fate. In a search for peace, I think Cersei would normally be the wild card in the situation, but with a baby on the way, it could all change. Jaime could also possibly want to sacrifice himself to save this child. It's the first child that he is actually going to be able to call his own. This means so much to this brother and sister that I can completely imagine them losing the war for peace. Now, a lot of things besides Arya swooping in and killing Cersei could go wrong here. After Bronn shot the dragon in episode 4, I had a feeling, maybe because Qyburn developed this scorpion to shoot that big bolt, and he's the one who deciphered how Myrcella was poisoned, so far as to get that same poison so Cersei could poison Illaria's daughter, that maybe in his study of the mountain's body, he found the same poison that Oberyn used to take down the mountain, and tipped the arrows that fit into the scorpion with that poison, that even if the dragon was hit a little bit, it would slowly start to decay. I thought this was such a great idea, but so far nothing has been given to us that would imply that the dragon is sick. If something was to come up and the dragon was starting to get ill, that's Daenerys' bottom bitch. If that dragon was to die and that was Cersei's fault, well, no peace would be had. But anyway, after a series of long battles, I think that possibly the fighting could be over. Except, of course, for the fight in the north. Alright, last but not least, number 5, a question that I have had for quite a while now. Does Bran being south of the wall mean that the magic is broken? Here's what I mean. Last season, Bran had reached his destination. After 5.5 long seasons, he finally made it to the Three-Eyed Raven, where he began training. He was having visions of his past, Jon's birth, all this other stuff. And then he has a vision of the Night King. And in that vision, the Night King grabs his arm and leaves a mark. It was implied that because this mark was on him, that the sanctuary that was the Three-Eyed Raven's cave, which apparently had some kind of Children of the Forest magic to keep out the White Walkers, that this meant that the spell was broken. That because Bran was in there with this mark, that the Night King could come in along with all the White Walkers. This led to the death of the Three-Eyed Raven, the remaining Children of the Forest, Summer, Bran's wolf, and Hodor. Then, the only remaining characters, Bran and Meera, run into Benjen, who is a good guy reanimated corpse, kind of, and he talks about the wall. How it's magic. That was in the season finale, and after that I was like, ooh, I wonder if when Bran goes past the wall, it's going to break and release an ice dragon, or just crumble altogether and let the White Walkers pass. I was really nervous about this for a whole year, and then in episode 1, Bran is dragged up through the wall, and the next episode he's already in Winterfell. What? You mean he's past the wall and nobody's mentioned anything about the mark that's still on his arm? Does that mark mean that the White Walkers can just walk past the wall? I think so. It hasn't been mentioned, but I still think that that's what's going to happen. We got a motley crew of great characters heading north of the wall right now. Some of my all-time favorite characters from the show. I can imagine them going deep north, finding what they need to find, but unfortunately leading the army back with them. And I think they would assume that the wall would keep them out, but what if they go through the wall, and because Bran is past it, the White Walkers can just pass on through? I don't know, but I'm so worried, and this is the biggest thing I think about every time I see Bran's dead, emotionless face. Does he not realize? He should know everything. I might just be wrong. But that is the 5th thing that I want answered before the season is over. Alright everybody, that is what I thought of this first half of the season. Let me know what you thought of the season down in the comments, and what questions you want answered before the season is up. Again, sorry I haven't been able to cover every episode this season. I'll most likely be back at the end for a total season review, unless a theory strikes me so seriously that I just have to cover it. Thank you all for watching. If you liked what you see here, please leave me a like. If by any chance you like my face and want to see more, subscribe. If you haven't already, follow me on Twitter and retweet me when I tweet. That is it for me. This has been The Dude. See ya.